Hi, good morning. I'm Blake Hylands. I'm the Vice President of Exploration for Troilus Gold Corp. We're a Quebec-based pre-development / exploration gold copper project. We are drilling quite aggressively now, pushing towards the pre-feasibility stage of our project, as well as going into another big regional program in one of the best jurisdictions in the world for mining.
Blake, thank you for the introduction. Nice to meet you, and good to have you on the show.
Thank you, Merlin. Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, so before we get into it, could you give me a bit of background about how you joined the company and kind of what got you started with Troilus?
Yeah, great question. So Justin Reed, the CEO, and I had started working together in another sort of shell type company that was looking for opportunities that had been capitalized after we'd sold the Schwindel asset in Peru. And we approached First Quantum in 2017 to potentially pick up the old Troilus mine that Inmet had operated from 1996 to 2010, which was a bulk tonnage, lower grade gold copper project. And at that point, we entered into an option agreement, 2-year option agreement that allowed us the time to look at the viability, the economic viability of the project. And we took the approach just from the historic drilling we had of looking at a bulk tonnage underground project, a la Gold X or Young-Davidson. So there were good analogs near us, and we used the engineering and costs from those to decide that looked like a viable project. Part of the reason we wanted the 2 years was because there was an environmental liability or a bond that needed to be replaced, and about $4 million. And before we tried to capitalize the project or take on that liability, we wanted to make sure that we felt like we could make something of it. And ultimately in 2018, we decided it was economically viable to look at that underground potential. We formed the company, and we got to work. And really in the last, I guess now it's been quite a few years now, but we have transitioned to an open pit story, realizing in so many cases, I'm sure you know, that a lot was left behind. It was operated in a $250 gold environment. And so it's become an open pit story, and we've moved away from the underground story, but that's really how we got started on this.
What was it were you looking kind of a 3 gram per ton underground kind of Quebec style? Was that the resource that you were kind of heading towards, and you've now gone to a kind of a much bigger 0.8, 0.9 gram per ton open pit?
It's a really good question. It was even lower. We were looking at more of a kind of a 1.8 gram per ton deposit, moving closer to 8 to 10,000 tons per day. And it was a binary topic. You know, some people believe in it, right? Down the road was Gold X doing it at 1.7, moving very similar tons per day. Young-Davidson sort of similar. And because of the existing infrastructure, because of the size of the deposit and the orientation, we felt like it was doable. But some people believed in it, some people didn't. We were okay with that. We expanded it. You know, our original drilling was to show that it goes deeper, that it's still there, that it's continuous, and it is down 800 meters. We were still seeing it. But as we stepped away and tested some new ideas, the open pit story really started to develop. We made some interesting discoveries since then, and the story keeps getting bigger and bigger at surface. And to your point, going more to a broad sort of 35,000 ton per day at call it 0.8 gram per ton type ore body.
There's a difference between making a mine or deposit work at the limits of viability and just kind of straining every sinew to make sure get everything absolutely right. And yes, I think this will work, or this will work. And sometimes there's an easier option. It's like language. It normally flows down the easiest path. Water going downhill. You try not to push it uphill too much. Make your life easier.
Very true. And I, in this case, it's been nice because it wasn't that we forced an open pit story on it. It was that the drill bit kind of organically grew an open pit story that keeps getting bigger and bigger. And because it was operated in a low gold price and environment, there was not really any exploration done here. So the opportunity was still wide open for us. And we've been able to outline quite a lot. I mean, we started with a 1.8 million ounce deposit underground. Now we have an 8.1 million ounce INI deposit, gold equivalent. with over 6.5 million of that focused at surface and growing. We're going to have another resource right by mid this year. And we've just done it all through the drill bit. We haven't really forced the issue to be open pit. It just sort of, it gave itself to us in that way by us having the ability to reinterpret and explore in a way that maybe they didn't have the opportunity to. And I say they, I mean Inmet when they operated the mine.
It's really tough when metal prices are low and you're operating and you're just right on the margin every day, just trying to feed that mill. So 96 to 2010, I mean, 96 to 2002 were low gold prices. And in fact, it only really started picking up in 2003, 2004. So they had just a chance at the end, while they're probably massively in debt, and it's probably really, really tough time.
I think so. I mean, there are stories of really they made the most money they'd ever made in the last couple of years, just actually feeding some of the waste piles, or let's say stockpiles, but really waste piles through the mill with no real mining. And the truth is, in Met, I don't think they were really interested in gold in Quebec in that environment. They are a base metal company. They were focused in Las Cruces in Spain and Cobre Panama, South America. And this was a project to get a gold multiple, which worked for them for a while. And then I think by the end, they were, just to your point, recognizing even as gold price was starting to pick up and that space was looking better, a lot of capital was going to have to go into the next phase of what they were going to do. They hadn't really explored ahead of themselves, but they had looked at going underground just like we were. They'd done a 450 meter drift. They were looking at a block cave scenario. They were going to go down and do it. Everything was already there. But again, it was an investment that they weren't willing to make. And ultimately, First Quantum buys them in 2012 hostily. And that, again, was for Cobre Panama and Las Cruces. And this deposit kind of sits there forgotten for a few years until we show up.
You've done a PEA and you're moving to a pre-feasibility study, but the recent news is that actually the envelope of mineralization is still open. You've got the southwestern zone. You're picking up some new grade. Does that take you back? I mean, before you do the next study phase, are you going to, what are you going to do on that envelope of mineralization? I mean, maybe a map would be useful at this stage to kind of to orientate ourselves. But do you have to repeat the PEA because you've changed the scope of the project?
No, I think that, and I'll share a map quickly just so we've oriented ourselves a little bit here. So you can kind of see Z87 and the J4 pit where the 2 million ounces, 70,000 tons of copper that Inmet produced came from. And that's really where, to your point, the majority of our PEA was focused. And that's still going to be impactful, I think, as we go into this PEA. But it's that southwest zone that you're talking about that we've seen a lot of growth. In that PEA, we had 8,000 meters of drilling to outline 600,000 inferred ounces, equivalent inferred ounces on the southwest zone. And in the bottom right, you can see where that southwest zone is. It's 2.5 kilometers down from our 87 pit. What we've done since then is put roughly 70,000 meters of drilling back into that southwest area. And because we've done that, we've got it to a place where we're going to have enough indicated to fit into a reserve that can tag on to what we already had going to the PEA, and we can transition right to a pre-feas, as well as doing a resource update on the southwest, the new southwest as it is. We started with sort of 600 meter strike length on that PEA resource. Now we're looking at roughly 2 kilometer strike length of mineralization at surface for some sense.
So it's not just been infill on that 600,000 ounces. It's been an expansion of the envelope.
Yeah. And I hate being the marketing guy that says it's still open in all directions, but it is still open in all directions. And it's been one of the big successes for us to try to understand how the mineralization here works, and that we are able to make a new discovery down 2.5 kilometers away and ultimately hopefully bring that back up through that gap zone you see on that bottom right image, bring it back to the mine and continue to find deposits along that at surface, not requiring pushback, gives us great optionality, just continues to improve the project. But all of it, to answer your question, really being in a way that we can update the to a point where we can feed right into a pre-feas. And that's so important because we want to get the permit process underway. We've done that. We started on the federal side, but you need a scoping study to to move some of that permitting forward. And we all know that that's, one of the big hurdles of getting the project moving forward. So once that one comes out in the middle of the year, we'll do the provincial side of permitting as well. We'll give our project description over, and we can start that process through the Quebec government, and the federal government as well.
So what is the mid-year permit you're waiting for, or looking to have processed by?
Well, we think we can be permitted and ready to construct by the end of 2024, start of 2025.
Oh, okay. So it's the pre-feasibility study that will be out in the middle of the year. So
the pre-feas will be out in the middle of the year. Yeah. And then we'll be able to put a scoping study or a project description around that. And what we've done is we're going to consider even that gap zone as part of the scoping study, because we feel like that growth is there. But whether it fills in or not, we want to make sure that we don't have to go backwards on permitting, of course.
And the image you showed, it was nice. I like the satellite overlay, because that really shows the grain of the terrain. It shows that kind of Archean deformation and that very strong northeast southwest kind of lineation or kind of alignment. And I noticed on the pit, the images of the pit shells in the Z87 pit, you've effectively got subvertical shoots of ore mineralization. Is that really a feature of the whole district? You get these within an envelope of mineralization, you get higher grade, steeply plunging subvertical shoots. It's
both. What we have is, I think the kind of earlier Archean portion of this, whether we want to hang our hat on a porphyry model or a distal VMS type early system, what we have is a huge system. On that image that we were just looking at, and we talk about the land package now and our belief, and we started with a 5,000 hectare land package. We now have 142,000 hectare land package, because we are in a completely underexplored greenstone belt. It is analogous to the Abitibi, one of the premier mining jurisdictions of the world. It's really just the northern extension of that. And those northeast southwest features that you're seeing are sort of the main thrust direction of the belt, where we've been successful. And to your point, where we get those near those subvertical, call them 65 to 70 degree ore shoots or whatever you want to call them. They're really the broad disseminated package. And then within those, what we've picked up on and what we feel is extremely important is a sense of orogenic overprinting that remobilizes that whole system and concentrates some of these somewhat oblique to that main northeast southwest trend. And we're seeing that on our property scale. We see that on a regional scale. And as we outline some of those in areas like Southwest that are brand new, they're going to give us optionality when we go into the engineering side of things. But of course, they're technical successes for our exploration team to keep seeing some of these features, whether they're hosted in feldspar porphyries or whether they're hosted in quartz veins or quartz carbonate vein sets, things like that. These are typical what you'd see in those Archean kind of greenstone environments: quartz carbonate plus or minus tourmaline, high grade gold. And then you've got, pyrite, chalcopyrite that are being reconcentrated, remobilized, and upgraded, basically. So hugely important for us and big part of how we discovered Southwest.
And to that, that's a high grade package. It's an enrichment. It's a concentration of metal or mineralizing fluids, possibly leaching it or remobilizing it from the broader package, but actually concentrating it within favorable zones. And do you have a handle on what controls that? I mean, what do you use as your vectoring tools to find more of those?
We're starting to. I mean, from soil geochemistry, we can follow some of the immobile elements features, right? And we are seeing geochemically some very interesting trends as well, with aluminum and titanium ratios. And magnetism seems to be extremely important to the broader disseminated package here, which of course on broad exploration gives us the usefulness of mag and higher res mag. But a lot of what we're looking for is vein hosted tighter packages like that. So what we've looked for are brittle units, right, that fit into this main thrust package, because those are what are going to break and give those brittle fracturing and opening that will allow even though it's fracturing and opening, I like to think of it as relaxing space and allowing for deposition of fluids. And the gold is already moving through there. The copper's moving through that system. It's what kind of sulfide content we get, to your point, is really just what is the chemistry of the lithology of the host rocks that they're coming into contact with. That we get big blowouts of mineralization, say, in sulfide packages, or do we not? We can get very high grade gold in these units with very, very little sulfide content, because it's just the host rock around it that is not, not necessarily having the sulfur iron content that is necessary to create, which has been a huge exploration success for us as well. Just understanding dead looking rocks can be high grade rocks, right? If you're in the right environment.
Just trying to unpick and unpack that a bit.
Sure.
Is it that you recognize this kind of overprinting almost in the course of exploration? So you follow the Archean, let's call it the first broad mineralization features, and you see how that's been deformed, and you can use that because you can get your broad lithology from the mag and your mapping, and the kind of the broad geochemistry. And then within that, when you see higher grade, and kind of, it's almost kind of retrospective, you look at the core and you say, oh, actually, look, there's a remobilization element here. Is that where it's at the moment?
Exactly.
To a degree.
Exactly. The value of the district to us is the broad system, right? So the broad system is, 50, 60, 70 kilometers long. It's kilometers wide. And it has massive early depositional events. We have evidence of VMS. We have evidence of magmatic systems. We have lots of early events that are clearly good plumbing sources for the metals that we're looking for. But that's a lower grade background disseminated system. When we look at Troilus, an area like Southwest, I can drill a hole top to bottom, sample top to bottom, and have gold top to bottom. The zone or the grade really comes from where are the mechanical or structural traps that allow that remobilization to concentrate. And the highest grade opportunity is when we see sort of some of those orogenic type features that again overprint the whole system and reconcentrate even more so, right? So it's just like what you said. We can follow the broader structure, then get boots on the ground or drill and start to look at some of the later structural features that will bring some of the higher grade opportunity in the district.
Thank you. I'm beginning to understand it. I'm a slow learner, but I'm
getting it as I'm saying it. I'm like, oh yeah.
Let's just go back to the resource. You've got about 6 million ounces, kind of surface resources, and close to 2 million ounces, which would kind of, I know we haven't done the economics just in the last 5 minutes, but let's kind of rule of thumb say a couple of million ounces, which would probably be underground, and 6 million ounces, which would probably be open pit. Yep. Close to 0.8 grams a ton. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think PEA, in the resource, we come out a little lower. It's really where you want to set your cutoffs. I guess the broad system comes out a little lower, but when we get to the pre-fees, I think we're going to be in a situation where we're a little bit higher than that point. I think we have 0.67 or 0.7 in the resource itself, but it'll be more like 0.8.
Okay. The recent drilling is a mixture of expansion and infill. So you're pulling inferred resources up to measured and indicated, and you're doing expansion. And presumably, I won't press you on what you're expecting in terms of kind of the growth of the resource, because we don't want to kind of get into this the speculation side of things. But you could give me an indication of how much drilling has gone inside the existing envelope and how much has gone outside. I mean, just as a kind of a rough split.
Sure, and maybe I can share a screen quickly again.
Yeah, please.
I won't dwell on it too much. If you can see this, in this image, it's a longitudinal section. You're looking west. You can see what the resource looked like around 87 in J zone, and then what it looked like around southwest. This isn't even all the updated drilling. This is an older image still. We've even stepped out further than this drilling, but all of the drilling you see around southwest, those traces hit mineralization, and they continue to the northeast and to the southwest, and we haven't cut it off at depth yet. Interestingly as well, these things seem to behave kind of like panels, and we were finding them down in the footwall of some of the drilling there, and now we're bringing them back up to surface. So as a split, it's almost 50-50. We've had to come back through and drill sort of that 50, 60 meter spacing to give us indicated, but we've also continued to step out really going into the pre-fees with Southwest is just a function of saying, okay, put a pin in the drilling for now so that we can get a pre-fees out. And like I said earlier, we started with 600 meter strike length on Southwest for 600,000 inferred ounces. We're now seeing it, wow, it's actually over 2 kilometers. We're still continuing to see that mineralization at surface and through the drilling. So I'm not going to say a number or get myself in trouble, but orders of magnitude like that, we would see growth on that. And of course, we're coming in behind ourselves to drill indicated. But the nice thing about this program is that we didn't want to be overly aggressive anyway. We wanted to step out slowly or smaller step outs so we could see how the system was building. So we've really been drilling it to indicated as we step out anyway. So it sort of works hand in hand to get the pre-fees.
And on a kind of holistic level, is the grade at the Southwest Zone similar to Z87 and Z-Pit?
Yes, but I would say it represents itself with higher highs and maybe lower lows. I think it's just structural, but ultimately it'll come in at that, I think that 1 gram kind of what they mined at 1 gram, they saw 110% reconciliation at the mill. You really have to drill it off on a structural system like this that kind of pinches and swells. But yes, the nice thing about it too, and what we're working on now is we think with some of those later kind of oblique structures, we're going to be able to drill in those for a while and outline those quite well. So when we do get to a mining scenario, those will be areas we could focus on, early in the mine life to feed a higher grade earlier to the mill and pay off the project quicker. And I'm stumbling in engineering here, but that's a key for us in drilling is good grade near surface, of course.
That long section that you showed me will completely change maybe not completely change, but it will change the order of the PEA. I don't know, because you had that in the PFS, or you had that in the PEA already. So you were probably going to start in the Southwest Zone anyway, weren't you? As your first pit.
In the PEA, we envisioned starting at 87 and J as well. We just didn't have enough material yet in Southwest to look at that. But of course, I think there's a center of gravity shift happening here on the project that would, look to start at Southwest because it's at surface. You can walk on it and touch it. I mean,
you don't have to do a big pushback. It's right there, and that'll change the economics in your favor.
Exactly. And we see that on the sort of the south side of the 87 pit as well, material that's still there. So these are things where we don't need that pushback and that early capital to go down and get the material.
Yeah. Can you tell me a bit more about so just before we move on, so pre-feasibility study on this area, it's going to be finished in the middle of the year? Is that
pre-feas is coming out in June or July of this year. Yeah.
So you must be nearing the kind of the data cutoff on the drilling.
Yeah, probably sometime next week. We'll put a pin in it. We've been very fortunate, knock on wood with our assay turnaround. I think now we've gone up to about 50 days on our assay turnaround, but for quite a while we were running 30. But we've been very fortunate. There's a lot of stories of 90 plus days on turnaround. We've been very lucky to this point. So we can push a little bit longer here, get done what we really wanted to get done, especially while the ground is frozen. It's really amenable for some of the areas we've been trying to drill. But we'll do about, I'll call it 9 more days, and then we'll put a pin in it to feed into that pre-fees.
Great. And will you kind of release the kind of the last set of drill data and then just go into the modeling and resource estimation process? Exactly.
So we will do that, and we'll put it all out together, resource update and reserve, as well as the pre-fees all together. We've seen some really excellent met results come back recently, over 90% on gold, over 90% on copper, almost 90% on silver, much higher than what we actually had in the PEA. And we did that on pilot plant scale work. So we're really optimistic about the effects of that on the project. But we will put out those numbers. We won't stop drilling. We won't drill quite as aggressively. We have 5 drills right now on the Southwest Zone trying to push for this pre-fees. We won't be quite that aggressive. We'll be a little more conservative than that. But I think for anybody looking at this project, that what we have is great. It's robust. It's a large mineral endowment. But the regional opportunity, that 2.5 kilometers in the gap zone, the Southwest continuing to expand, those are all going to be important as we move past pre-fees. So we don't really want to take the foot completely off the gas when it comes to to testing some of these ideas and continuing to expand. We will get past or get through a pre-feas, and hopefully at that point be able to show even more growth and more blue sky potential on the project. And that really is what makes it look like a 50-year project.
Let's talk about the regional.
Sure.
When you talk about regional exploration, do you mean, what do you mean? Can you pull up a map? And because it's surely not just the 2 kilometers between in that gap zone.
Yeah, that's a great question. And hopefully I'm not too staticky for you, but here's an image of our 142,000 hectares, which is, for scale, twice the size of Toronto. There are some key areas that we focused on last year. We picked up this ground in 2020 as COVID was rolling in. We discovered the Southwest. We realized we realized the scale opportunity here and the district scale opportunity. We wanted to pick up as much as we could before somebody else did. So there's really no one else, not many companies around us. Sumitomo with Kenorland have a bit of property around us in the Renault Val-d'Or area, but mostly it's just us in this area. And a couple really interesting points on this map, I'll just say quickly. Number 2 on there is the Cressida Band showing. That's about 20 kilometers along the strike of what we see on J and 87. If I take the rocks from J and the west side of 87 and Cressida, and I put them all in a box together, it's impossible to tell the difference.
Can you show with your mouse? Just there we go. I can see,
yeah, so all the way from 1 all the way down to 2 here is a 20 kilometer trend where the host rocks are identical.
Yeah.
So it's now going back to your point. We've picked up that system. Now within that system, where does the grade sit to add more deposits along that? And we've done some work on Cressida to show the potential to grow that. It's on the road accessing the site. It's hugely important to us.
Yeah, I can see. I mean, it's interesting to see that road is following. Well, no surprise. I mean, the road is following the geology. So, the fabric of the terrain is northeast, south. Yes, southwest. And essence package you picked.
Funny how that's always the easiest path, right?
Yeah,
it's along the geology. And then an area that we're very, very, very excited on is number 3, this Testard Free Gold area. We had a quartz vein hosted channel sample that ran over 200 grams gold, over 2,000 grams silver, 6% copper. A very, very interesting area broadly because you can kind of see the scale of that whole 3 on this map. And why it's interesting to us is it has exactly the same, I think I mentioned this earlier, the same kind of features, that northeast, southwest overall strike and trend. And then it has an east-west higher grade overprinted trend on that as well. Okay. And as we sample and do that, we continue to see kind of parallel higher grade structures, kind of like Riedel shear package type things that you would expect to see cross-cutting the main foliation of that zone. So you've got broad mineralization, bound on both sides by intrusive autonolite and a granodiorite on either side, these more kind of brittle features that relax and open. And then cross-cutting all those features is a higher grade overprinting. And so it's extremely exciting because it has all of the characteristics we would want to see of Troilus and of high grade deposits in the area.
Between, hang on, can you just go back to that? Between that 0.3 and 0.4, you've got a kind of like an organ or a strain kind of shadow area. You know, you've got that enormous kind of eye-like structure, which covers the kind of above Val-d'Or to going towards between Tortigny and Free Gold. I mean, what do you use as your what are your exploration tools here? Do you use the high resolution mag? Do you use bottom of till? Do you use ionic leach geochemistry, prospecting? You know, what's in your toolbox?
Yeah, so we use them all, but primarily that high res mag has been excellent for structure, obviously, and that's worked very well for us so far. I'm a big believer in prospecting. I think boots on the ground and testing everything is really the best way to make new discoveries. And these discoveries were actually made that way even before we worried about mag. And we had some time, if I can reminisce, but when COVID rolled in, when COVID rolled in, we didn't, we weren't able to do a lot, but we were able to fly around in a helicopter and look for outcrops. And that's actually where we made most of these discoveries, was just looking for boulders and looking for outcrops and then just landing and sampling them. And then later we've overlaid the geophysics. We overlaid the high-res mag. Till sampling, it works very well in this area. Troilus itself is a till discovery. So they're all important. But we're a boots on the ground kind of company in a lot of ways. And maybe that's just my bias, but that's been successful for us so far.
What would a graduate geologist start on as a, coming out with a master's degree or an honors degree, 21 or 22-year-old? What's the kind of not necessarily for Troilus, but what are you hearing on the grapevine as the kind of the starting salary?
What do they start out at for money-wise?
Yeah.
Just shy of 100, 90 to 100.
Yeah.
So it's better than when I started, and they're doing well. And but it's I don't know, in this market nothing seems like enough, and you're always trying to retain people, but we have an amazing team, and we teamed up with the University of Western, which is where I went with Neil Banerjee, and he and I are close friends now, and I asked him to start working with us on the science of this. And what we've ended up with is every year master's students coming out of Western who have different projects, and they can build on each other's projects from the years before. And then we've hired them coming out of school, and then they get really, really good, and then they cost more and more, as you know. Yeah. But it's been excellent because it's led to some of these ideas of orogenic overperformance. When you do fluid inclusion studies, which are way beyond my capability, and you do real petrography, and you do real geochem work, it's not just me arm waving anymore. It's the science backing up our ideas, and that's been important for us from day one. And it's been a really good synergy for some of those students to be able to come out and work right away on something that they have a good concept on. So it's been good. Yeah.
Great. How much drilling are you going to do on those regional stops? How much is going to go into Cressida and to what the other areas, Tortigny, Free Gold? What are you looking at in terms of your meters budget?
Testard, we put 1,000 meters in at the end of last summer. We put out a release that we did that, and we'll have some results coming out on that in the next few weeks, which are very interesting, not just on the channel sample we showed, but I think we've made a new discovery in that area as well. And then Free Gold will be success dependent, but it's starting to become a pretty obvious drill target, especially on those east-west trends. So a total number, call it 5,000 to 10,000 meters of drilling that will definitely get done this year on those areas. And if we're successful early, we'll do more, because why not? It's hugely prospective, and we want to advance it quickly.
You're going to go into the budget meeting toe to toe with the project feasibility guys, aren't you? You're going to say, we need more money on exploration.
100%. That's why successes like Southwest help, right? I get to bang on the table and say, remember when we did that? Remember how many ounces we had? So that's always helpful. Yeah. For sure.
And the 1,000 meters that you're looking to release in the coming weeks, that's from Free Gold drilling from last summer.
Just on Testard, we did it late in the year last year. We used a fly rig for it, and it's very interesting. Very, very interesting.
Okay, well, say no more, or you'll get in trouble.
That's right. We can do a follow-up after they're out.
Yeah. We should do.
Yeah.
So sorry, hang on. The 5 to 10,000 meters of drilling, is that for the kind of the regional package, or and you'll have to divvy that up between the three main priority areas, or will you kind of get given a few thousand meters to begin with and say, let's see how you go. If you get some good results from Free Gold, we'll give you another 10.
I think we're set on that number. I think it would be do that and then see if we can do more. We have the budget for it. Flow through is a powerful thing in Quebec, and we have a nice chunk of it. And I don't include gap zone drilling as part of that regional. I consider that something else. So we're looking, 5 to 10,000 on Testard alone. Just on the back of what we already did. And then when I look at Free Gold, this is a multi-kilometer target, so we could easily come across that and start making new discoveries there. But won't be difficult to allocate that kind of meterage to that, and we certainly have the budget for it. So.
Great. Well, Blake, thank you so much. I feel as if I've got a real introduction to the geology and the potential for Troilus. Is there anything else that you want to kind of talk about that we haven't spoken about yet?
I mean, I think we covered most of it. I just really want to drive home that it's still a developing story, even as we get through the pre-fees, that it still continues to grow, and we continue to find more, and as we understand more, the opportunity to find. We talk a lot about not finding more ounces, but finding good ounces here, and by that we just mean those higher grade ounces that are going to really make this project sing, and that's the takeaway for our exploration team right now is to keep doing that. So, other than that, I think you covered it all pretty well, Merlin. It was a in-depth interview for sure.
Good. Well, I mean, the grade is so important because I mean, if you've got an average grade of 0.7 grams per ton, and you can take it up to 0.8 grams a ton, that's an immediate kind of 12, 13, 14% value increase to your entire project.
Exactly. And it's why finding new things at surface is so important, because we can narrow and have some optionality there to feed that grade early. The project's going to be what it's going to be over, however long it operates, but it's those first 4 to 5 years. We can find those near surface targets and get that grade up. And it's so funny. We're talking about 15, 20, 30% improvement, 0.1, 0.2, 0.3.
Yeah.
Those are real. We have the ability. We're not asking to go from 3 to 10. We're asking to add a little bit more, a few more sniffs here and there, and it's very, very achievable. And it's just time. It's just doing a little bit of more work. And the nice thing is we have a really good project now, and we can keep making it better and better. So.
Well, the clue is in the in what Inmet did. They made their money once all the capital had been paid off, and that they were just running down their stock waste piles. Now, for the transformational kind of value add for you guys is if you can get some high grade, or you can front end the high grade as best as possible to get that payback to pay off your capital, so that everything after that is just kind of a margins game.
You're exactly right. And so for us now, that becomes it. We've said we have 8 going to more million ounces. How do we find those higher grade, a few more ounces? If we're going to be 250,000 ounce gold producer every year, let's go find a million and a half higher grade ounces at surface. And that's going to give us those 5, 6, 7 years of higher grade. And then after that, everything's paid, and we'll see where gold and copper are at that point, right?
Well, Blake, thank you very much. Look forward to talking to you, maybe when we get the test lab results out, but otherwise later in the year.
I would really like that. So thank you very much for the time.